Welcome to Reddit After Hours. This is r/Am I the Butthole, where OP's sister-in-law talks down to her even after her baby was taken to the NICU. Our first Reddit post comes from Persimmon Pale 466, titled, "Am I the butthole for telling my sister-in-law to get over herself and stop trying to one-up us?" My wife, a 27-year-old female, and her sister, who's 30, got pregnant around the same time. The babies are the first of a new generation on their side of the family, so everyone was super excited. My sister-in-law was further along, but my wife did end up giving birth on week 32. Plus, she had some complications that unfortunately had her hospitalized. My nephew was born 2 weeks later, though, at full term. Apparently, my sister-in-law was resenting, quote, having her thunder stolen and felt that she and her new baby weren't getting enough attention. She keeps making these comments like she's trying to one-up us. First, she was saying how sorry she was that my wife missed the, quote, golden hour because they had to take our son straight to the NICU, which, for those who don't know, is like a baby intensive care unit. This upset my wife since during her hospitalization, she was often too sick to even visit the NICU, and she was already feeling crappy about missing skin to skin on those first few weeks. I'm just going to say this before we move on. Talking down to a new mother who couldn't spend those first moments with their child because their child was getting intensive care, like right out of the womb, is just super low. It's hard to steep lower than that. After all that had passed, we finally started bringing our son to family gatherings, and our sister-in-law started to compare the boys. She kept saying how much bigger and more alert her son looked compared to ours and how he had hit more milestones. Last weekend, we had lunch at my in-laws. My wife and I were excited to tell everyone that our son laughed for the first time that day. He's about 5.5 months old now. My mother-in-law and father-in-law were having a good time watching the video when sister-in-law made another comment about how her son did that a month ago. I don't know why that was the last straw, but I just about had it. I told my sister-in-law that she's pathetic for trying to one-up a freaking baby, that her full-term son wasn't special for being more developed than a preemie, that she should go F herself over not giving birth to the first grandbaby anyway. Needless to say, this ruined lunch, and now my wife's family is super pissed. I admit that I was harsh with my words and tone, and this was the first time that I confronted her family like this, because up until now, we had each handled our own relatives. But these comments really upset my wife, and honestly, they pissed me off too. So, am I the butthole for being so harsh and not, quote, staying in my lane? Definitely not the butthole. My biggest question here is, why are you the problem for talking back to your sister-in-law when all your sister-in-law does is make snippy comments about her own sister and her sister's baby? Like, her parents really don't see any issue with that, but they see an issue with you standing up to her? Seems like a little bit of golden child syndrome here. I really don't think you did anything wrong. You stood up for your wife and you stood up for your child. What more can a person ask of their partner? Our next Reddit post comes from Spooky Beagle, titled, "Am I the butthole for a text I sent in a group chat while in labor?" I, a 29-year-old female, gave birth to my third baby in November. The women in my husband's family, his two sisters, our sister-in-law, and his mother and I have a group chat whereas we send pictures of our kids, tell funny stories about our day, and, in this case, send updates about possible labor. On this particular day in November, at 37 weeks plus 5 days, I reached out to inform them that this just might be the day that my newest baby decides to make his grand entrance. I had been having strong contractions since 5:50 that morning. Everyone except my sister-in-law, my husband's brother's wife, responded with excitement and praying hands emojis. Well, according to the nurses at the hospital, I wasn't quite dilated enough to be admitted despite strong and frequent contractions. This was at about noon. I updated the chat and everyone seemed concerned and asked if I still thought that today might be the day. I assured everyone that it was most likely going to happen today still, judging from past experiences, but that I was going to go home to labor in comfort. This is where I might be the butthole, though. My sister-in-law, who gave birth to her third baby a couple months prior via C-section, which I am not judging, nor do I think less of her as then, just context is key for this, right? Decided to text how glad she was that I wasn't in, quote, real labor, and that it's better that I wait to have the baby another couple of weeks. She then sent a bunch of screenshots and links to articles about false labor and Braxton Hicks. She said this as if I had never given birth before or experienced pregnancy before. I replied, mid-contraction, not to be a biddy, but this isn't my first rodeo, and I know how to Google things as well. And yes, I have been checked, and they will check again before deciding if and when I should go home or not. Ultimately, I did go home, only to go back to the hospital just a couple of hours later, and I had my baby at 10:15 that night. Sister-in-law still doesn't reply to my texts and has since unfriended me on Facebook. Honestly, not that I even really care about that. I just wanted to know, am I the butthole for what I said? And in hindsight, perhaps I shouldn't have been texting in the group chat while in labor. So, Reddit, am I the butthole? And then we have a couple of edits from OP. So, first edit. I meant to elaborate on the C-section detail, which definitely makes me come across as someone who looks down on her for it, which I promise I do not. Her first baby was a preemie, and she had an emergency C-section. Her youngest two were actually scheduled. The point I was trying to make was that our experiences with pregnancy and childbirth are completely different, which I could have said without mentioning the C-section fact. My apologies. And then the second edit, which I think provides a little bit better context into the sister-in-law. So a little bit more about my sister-in-law and my relationship. She thinks that she's the matriarch of the family, even though she won't admit it. We recently moved out of state, only about 2 hours away, which is kind of a long drive, but not as long as they treat it, a few months ago before I gave birth. And she started cutting us out of all the family get-togethers and even created a whole new group chat without my husband and me. She was always shocked at how intelligent my husband is because he went to community college instead of a university like she did. I didn't go to college at all. I saw no point in going into debt, and I didn't even know what I wanted to major in college, so I decided to wait. So she often treats me like I'm unintelligent because of this. I think the snappy text was probably long incoming, but it was poorly timed and shouldn't have been in the group chat. It was not the first time I had gone off on her in a group chat either. She singled me out a few months prior, questioning my ability to care for my kids by myself while my husband was away for a couple of days. And yes, she called me out in the big family group chat, so I snapped back. My husband saw the message before me and said, I'll let you handle her, as he held me back many times beforehand to keep the peace. Like I said, it was poorly timed, but long incoming. OP, your sister-in-law sounds like a piece of work. She shouldn't be looking down on you and your husband as unintelligent for not going to a university. There are so many people in this world that are wildly successful who don't go to college. And likewise, there are so many people that go to college and get a 4-year degree at a university and don't even find a job in their field. They end up in debt and they can't even get a job and they can't even pay that debt back. So, college is not that good of a precursor on how successful you're going to be nowadays, at least in 2025. And then you have the cutting you out of all the family group chats and trying to cut you out of family events and gatherings. It seems like for whatever reason, like your sister-in-law just doesn't like you. Like she just wants to kind of see you fail and talk down to you at every turn that she possibly can. If I were you, OP, I would absolutely go no contact with that sister-in-law and just keep your relationship with your other family members, as they seem a lot more positive and a lot more supportive of you. Our next Reddit post comes from AnnandMouse82, titled, Am I the butthole for correcting a friend when she said that she, quote, rehomed her cat? So my friend told a story about rehoming her cat because it wouldn't stop going to the bathroom on her bed. She said that she put the cat in a carrier and left it outside the door of a local salon before they opened. She said that she checked in later and one of the girls had decided to adopt the cat, so the rehoming was a success. I told her that what she did was not rehoming and that what she had actually done was dumped her cat. I told her that rehoming involves finding a new owner and vetting them in advance. She got very angry at me and called me judgy for judging her. Am I the butthole? OP, not only are you not a butthole, I'm pretty sure that's a crime. Like, you can't just dump an animal in a carrier like that in some random place with presumably no food, no water, no way to get out or like defend itself or run away or, defend itself from the elements. Like, that's a horrible thing to do to a poor defenseless animal. And the fact that your friend thinks that's okay, to me, really makes her a crappy person. Maybe I'm being a little harsh, OP, but I have a really special soft spot in my heart for animals, and anyone that would treat an animal like that is just really a garbage person to me. Like, what happens if it's not the salon owner that comes and takes the cat, but some psycho that says, oh, free cat, I can't wait to hurt this thing when I get home? Like, is that still a successful rehoming? Like, that's terrible. Our next Reddit post comes from throwaway27382823, titled, Am I the butthole for not staying away from my brother even after my fiance asked me to? So, I, a 25-year-old female, and my fiance, a 28-year-old male, got engaged about a month ago and decided to meet each other's families for the first time in person and give them the news. They knew that we had been dating for about 1 year prior to this, and we invited them all to lunch so we can spend the entire day together. Overall, it went really well, but as soon as everyone left, my husband literally closed the door and told me that he needs to talk to me about something in a very stern voice. He sat me down and told me that he found my brother's behavior creepy, and I asked him what exactly was creepy about him. He said that he didn't like the way my brother, who is 27, is so touchy with me. Now, the thing is, me and my brother have always been super close, and our family's love language is physical affection. Hugging, kissing on the cheeks and foreheads, keeping heads on shoulders, etc. are very common for us. My brother hugged me when he first saw me, and he gave me a really tight hug because we hadn't seen each other for months, and I'm literally his baby sister. He then hugged my fiance too and congratulated us, and then kissed my forehead and hugged me again and said, I'm so happy for you. He was genuinely very excited and very happy. Then after lunch, we were all sitting and talking, and he kept ruffling my hair and pulling my cheeks like he's literally been doing since we were children. Then before leaving, he gave me another hug, and that was pretty much it. He himself is married, and my sister-in-law also treats me just like he does. In fact, all of our family is the same, but for some reason, this was weird to my fiance. He also has a brother and says that brothers don't act this way normally. From what I noticed, yes, his brother just gave him a side hug and a handshake for me. He was nice otherwise, but not very physically affectionate like my brother is. However, my fiance literally proceeded to tell me that I should stop meeting my brother from now on unless he's with me. But I went to see my brother today, and my fiance found out, and now he's making a fuss about it. Am I the butthole for still going to meet my brother after my fiance told me not to? Have I broken a boundary or trust? OP, definitely not the butthole. I don't understand what your fiance's problem with this is. Families interact and show love for each other in a lot of different ways. No one family is like another, and all cultures are different too. Like in America, you're not going to see people greeting each other, and especially your average like males, right? With a hug and a kiss on the cheek, right? But a lot of Italian families that I noticed, like in Tulsa King, right? If you've ever seen that show, great show. It's very common in Italian culture. You see another dude, family member, hey, hug and a kiss on the cheek, right? So I don't understand what his problem is. I think the only boundary being crossed here is him trying to keep you from your brother. That's just really weird. No matter my feelings for my wife's family, I would never try to keep her from her family or make rules for her to not see her family, because then where does it end, right? He tells you that you can't see one family member, then you can't see two family members, then you can't see any of your family without him. Where does it end? That just doesn't sound like a very healthy dynamic to get into. Our next Reddit post is from Potential Pie 7714, titled, "Am I the butthole for blaming my nephew for using my credit card without my permission?" So, let me start off by saying that I'm pretty bad at checking the details on my bank statements, but recently I saw that something wasn't right. So I went through every single one of them for the past year, and there were over 100 charges from PlayStation. I only had 4 purchases on my 2 PlayStation accounts in a single year, so I panicked as I thought that someone had gotten my credit card info. In all, the total charges were around $1,500. I contacted both my siblings, whose kids also have accounts, and asked nicely if their kids may have purchased anything using my bank account before I make a dispute. Both said no, so I went ahead and I called both PlayStation and my bank. The bank was able to charge back the past few months, and the rest is still under investigation. Well, a few days later, I get a frantic call from my teenage nephew who says that his PlayStation account was perma-banned. I asked him if he was sure that he didn't buy anything with a credit card after I gave him several $100s on a PlayStation gift card for his birthday this summer to spend on stuff, and he again denied it. So I obtained all my nephew's email logins, and sure enough, it was purchases that he made to his account using my credit card, literally on all the stuff that he plays. Then he starts to say that maybe he bought a few items here and there. Now my sister is pissed at me. She says that I must have added my credit card info to buy him something at some point in time, and that it was all my fault that he was making purchases from my card. If it were her credit card, she'd get an alert. She never thought of the fact that he may have taken my credit card info. No, it was all me. She doesn't want him to lose his account and said that she'll call PlayStation to pay for it all. She said that he always asks and she gets alerts and doesn't understand that I didn't, so that I shouldn't blame him for it when it should be my fault. I said, well, he knew he was spending someone else's money, so why is this my fault? And that he stopped asking her for permission to make purchases because no one stopped him. After that, she said that I was blaming her kid for everything. So, am I the butthole? So, a quick update. My nephew is almost 15, and I'm still unsure of how he got my payment info. After an intense argument with my sister, she was still denying that my nephew even made the charges at all. I was finally able to show her, though, each and every transaction that he had made. Before, I only explained this to her, but now I have proof because she didn't believe me when I told her. After seeing the evidence, he finally fessed up. He claimed that he thought it was her credit card that he was using. Of course he did. She will be paying me for all of the money that he used on my account, and he will not be getting his PS5 back until he works to pay off the money. Even then, my sister still may not let him have it. My nephew insists, though, that he will be paying us both double for our troubles, but the real damage here is not the money, it's the trust that I had in both of them. 14, almost 15, is absolutely old enough to know right from wrong and to know that you should ask someone for permission before using their card, whether or not you think it's your mom's or anyone else's. And I have a hunch that he knew that it was not his mom, because even in that post you said, OP, you said that his mom says that he, quote, always asks for permission. That can't be true, because in the course of him spending this $1,500 on your card, he would have had to ask his mom a dozen times, hey, can I spend money on this? And she would have had to give him permission. And then she would have never thought that it was weird that she just never got a, quote, notification like she was talking about, that he actually spent the money that he just got permission for. Like, she never found that weird. He absolutely knew what he was doing, and he should be old enough to know right from wrong. I also think it's very telling that after you coming to him and coming to your sister multiple times, he never came clean because he felt bad or he wanted to apologize or even say sorry. He only came clean because his account got banned and he didn't want to lose, his account and his achievements. Had his account never got banned for spending all that money, he would have never came clean. And don't get me wrong, he's only 14. I'm not trying to be too hard on him, but hopefully this is a good learning lesson for him for the future about asking permission and not using other people's things without their permission. He's only 14. He's a kid. He's going to make mistakes, but hopefully he can learn from this and just move forward. That was Reddit After Hours, bringing you r/Am I the Butthole. Thank you all so much for listening, and if you like these videos, like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below for any future Reddit subs that you'd like us to cover, as we post new Reddit videos almost every single day.